Okay, I'm going to get right into this. This video is about an SSA employee that was essentially arrested for stealing benefits. And some of you are thinking, yeah, sure, yeah, right. Well, just so you guys know, this case was not, once again, was not in fact sealed. So I was able to go into Pacer and bring up the actual docket and share it with you. And as you can see here, 7/1/25, arrest of Tiffany Foster, KAS, entered 07/01/25. Okay. Now, for item number 4, you have to have authorized user entry only for Pacer login and password first for authentication. So I can't share with you that particular document. This document, the bond report, is sealed. However, I can share with you the actual indictment, which is not sealed. It is public through the Pacer system, although most of you can't access the Pacer system. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go through how this SSA employee stole benefits using what was released through OIG, the Office of Inspector General, which are like, the overseeing managers of investigators, right? And then after that, we're going to go through the actual indictment as to what this Social Security employee actually did to steal the benefits, okay? Now, remember, this information is going to show you some of the inner workings of how this person abused their knowledge base when it comes to taking things that weren't theirs. And the sad thing is that when you commit some sort of fraud against a benefit, doesn't matter if it's a Social Security benefit or a COVID benefit or this benefit or a welfare benefit, doesn't matter. You ultimately end up injuring all Americans because all Americans pay taxes into the system to make this whole thing run the way it's supposed to run. Let's get into this right now. Here we go. This is the SSA employee who was indicted for COVID-19 relief fraud tied to Paycheck Protection Program and unemployment benefit claims. Let me walk you through it. This was released July 14th, 2025. So this is just happening right now. Kansas City, a Social Security Administration employee collected a government paycheck from the American people while allegedly scamming pandemic relief programs out of more than $50,000. Tiffany Foster, 48, of Kansas City, has been indicted on 2 counts of wire fraud after federal investigators stated she submitted falsified tax and bank records to obtain a Paycheck Protection Program loan and unemployment benefits, all while working full-time for the SSA. Now, I want to point something out in defense of Tiffany. The main problem I see with what's happening with SSA employees, the main thing I hear from SSA employees is that they're not paid enough. And a lot of you are going to say, well, so sad, so blah, 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 blah. They get all these benefits, yada, yada. Let me make this very simple. People do not want to work for the government anymore. It's not cool. It's not monetarily smart. It's just okay for the benefits down the line if you stay there long enough. You have the golden handcuffs on. So the bottom line is we are seeing this stuff, in Tiffany's defense because the SSA does not pay people enough money to realistically have that safe middle ground feeling. And that's across a lot of industries right now because we're coming out of the past 4 with Biden. And let's be clear, things were not handled so well economically. Let's keep reading. At the time of the alleged conduct, Foster was employed full-time as a customer service representative. According to the indictment, Foster knowingly submitted false documents and made fraudulent statements to obtain both a Paycheck Protection Program loan and unemployment benefits. Quote, these charges reflect a potential serious breach of public trust. And they always put that in there when it's a employee that handles specific things interacting with your private information, said Michelle L. Anderson, acting Inspector General for the SSA. Quote, and notice how it says acting. I don't know if we have a current Inspector General on behalf of the SSA right now. Quote, federal employees have a duty to uphold the law, not abuse their positions for personal gain. We will continue to hold accountable those SSA federal employees who violate the law and erode the public's trust in the SSA. Now you'll notice what the SSA is worried about. They're not really worried about in that statement the 50 grand that was taken. They're like, whatever, it's COVID relief, yada, yada. What they're really worried about is how you, the American people, view the Social Security administrative personnel, right? So do we love these administration personnel and think we can trust them? Or do we feel like, there's a bad apple in every cart and the SSA's got a couple of carts? I think realistically, what we're seeing here is a theme that keeps happening. And that's that people who are working for the SSA aren't getting paid much. So they're starting to get, some ideas of how they can go forward and get more money. All right, let's keep rocking through this thing real quick. Let's keep going. So, with that said, the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee flagged Foster as one of several SSA employees whose personal information had been used in suspicious pandemic-related application. Investigators determined in July of 2020 Foster applied for unemployment benefits through the state of Michigan despite being a Missouri state resident and fully employed by the SSA. To be fair, I don't know, if you're going to use your own social to apply for stuff, they're going to check you out. You're a gov employee. You're top of the list that they're going to look at. Ultimately, receiving over $30,000 in benefits. Additionally, in early 2021, Foster applied for a $20,833 PPP loan for a business, submitting an altered IRS tax form and falsified bank statements. The U.S. Small Business Administration later forgave the loan. If convicted, Foster faces up to 20 years in federal prison for each count, followed by supervised release. Sentencing will be determined by the court following a pre-sentence investigation. The case is being prosecuted by Special Assistant U.S. Attorney Amanda K. Hansen. The investigation was conducted jointly by SSA OIG, Office of Inspector General, and the Department of Labor, OIG. Members of the public are encouraged to report suspicious Social Security fraud to the OIG at oig.ssa.gov. Now, here's the deal. We know she was arrested. We know that there was a bond report. We know that there was oral motions. All right. We know that there were minute entries, arraignment held. Okay. There was an oral motion again. Let's see what else is going on here. Order granting motion to appoint counsel, order setting conditions to release, notice of attorney appearance, affidavit, arraignment trial setting, discovery and scheduling order. Yeah. So this is fresh off the block. Let me explain. The first docket entry was 6/27/25. So this happened 2 weeks ago. This is fresh. This is whoa, this is just going on. And then arrest of her was 7/1/25 days later. Now, let's check out the actual indictment that occurred here. Now, I'm going to skip the intro stuff about when the president signed the PP law into force. I'm going to skip all that stuff. What I'm going to get into is specifically the scheme. Right here, quite literally, the scheme. Okay. If you guys are wondering, you want to look up the case later, I don't know if you're going to be able to. It's not on Justia. It's 4:25-00201-01-CR-W-BP. Again, 4:25-00201-01-CR-W-BP. Let's read into it. On or about February 10th of 2021, in the Western District of Missouri, the defendant, Tiffany Foster, who lived in Kansas City, Missouri, completed and sent an application supporting documents to Intria Ventures LLC to apply for a PPP loan under the CARES Act for her business. Now, right off the bat, that sounds pretty similar, to what a lot of people did. They had a business, they submitted for a loan. I submitted for a loan to pay for the payroll of people. Okay, when COVID hit, and people couldn't go to offices, guess what happened? Most businesses had a real big interruption. Next, the application supporting documents stated that the defendant was the owner of a business named Exotic Indiscretions LLC and used her own Social Security number for the business. Foster included the 2019 tax form 1040 Schedule C with her application, which listed gross receipts of sales of $152,675 and profit of $6,311. The Form 1040 Schedule C, the defendant filed with her 2019 taxes, indicated different amounts, including $1,350 in gross receipts or sales and a net loss of $1,032. Foster also submitted the bank statement from January of 2020, indicating she had a combined total of $11,825.84 in both her business checking and business savings account. Bank's records showed her actual combined balance from January 2020 was 36 cents. Indicating the statement she provided with her application was altered. The full amount of the PPP loan, $20,833, was deposited via wire transfer from Itria Ventures LLC into a Mazuma credit union account ending in, I can't give you that detail, on March 26, 2021. Itria Ventures LLC is a New York, while Mazuma Credit Union is headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas. On July 4th of 2020, Foster submitted an application for unemployment benefits in the state of Michigan, which included PUA benefits. The application provided her a fraud warning indicating that it is considered fraud if a false statement is made in the application or information, if it's concealed to obtain the benefits. Foster affirmed her understanding of this fraud wording on the application. She indicated on the application that she was a resident of Michigan and was unemployed due to the pandemic, when in fact, she was residing in the Western District of Missouri and working full-time for the Social Security Administration. You can see where it's getting a little spicy. You can see where the problem's starting to pop up. Foster also indicated on her application that she had not applied for unemployment benefits in any other state. In fact, she had applied for unemployment benefits in the state of Missouri on May 11th, 2020. Foster received unemployment benefits from March 28, 2020 through September 4, 2021 from Michigan for a total of $34,960. Damn, you know? These benefits were deposited from the state of Michigan into Foster's account by electronic direct deposit with Pathward National Bank, which is located in Sioux Falls, in South Dakota. I think it's Sioux? Yeah, Sioux, something like that. Count 1. The allegations set forth in paragraph 1 through 8 are hereby incorporated in full on or about March 26, 2021. In the Western District of Missouri, the defendant, Tiffany Foster, having devised and intended to devise a scheme to obtain money by means of materially false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises, for the purpose of executing the scheme described above, caused to be transmitted by means of wire communication in interstate commerce a deposit of $20,833 from Itria Ventures LLC into her account, all in violation of the provisions of Title 18 United States Code Section 1343. The allegations set forth in paragraph 1 through 8 are hereby incorporated in full. On or about September 14, 2021, the Western District of Missouri, the defendant, Tiffany Foster, having devised and intended to devise a scheme to obtain money by means of materially false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises for the purpose of executing the scheme described above, caused to be transmitted by means of wire communication and interstate commerce an unemployment benefit payment of $460 from the state of Michigan into her bank account, all in violation of the provisions of Title 18 United States Code Section 1343. All right, so here's the thing. And I want to point something out because I think this keeps happening. To be fair, I think this is essentially a situation where at the end of the day, I think we realistically need to pay attention to this problem. Now, real quick, Christ did an amazing $20 donation. That's absolutely amazing. Let me put this, I put a little heart on there. Walter, thanks for all the great videos. I've been watching them for 2 years. Well, super thank you for being a part of the channel. I super appreciate it. Honestly, when you guys pump me up with positivity, it really helps because some of the comments I read, they are so mean. They are so mean. They just beat, like one of them was like, one of them was just attacking me. He's like, I don't care that you don't have a 401k. You have a farm. I don't own the farm. First of all, I get no profit from the farm. Second of all, third of all, I have to pay for stuff for the farm so that I have materials to make the videos to show you guys the farm videos. You know, like those tools that I use, like the concrete cutter and all. I have to buy all of that to then do the videos to put on YouTube. So like, and a lot of people just hate. They just hate. But I really, when you pump me up, it really helps me kind of like keep going. I do have a thing that's coming out soon that's going to, I think, be a better, like I'm going to share with you something very personal in a not too distant future. The studio area where we're going to have people actually perform, it's going to be disabled people or Social Security people performing songs, guitar, singing, stuff like that, that are going to actually create halftime show videos. And you're going to be seeing real people with their real music in the halftime shows in between my videos. And I think that's really cool because you're going to get to vote on, what you liked about their talent, what you think they should be doing, how they could improve, all that stuff. And so I think it's going to be cool. It's going to be like a live version of like one of those classic America's Got Talent, The Voice, etc. shows. And I have for the past, almost 40 years been collecting gear that, is really, really top notch gear. And that's been my one thing. Like if you look at my car, it's a beat the hell, rusting / plastic fading 2010 Prius. And I love that thing. And she will not die because I just honestly, the Toyotas, you know what I mean? And I've got a 2000 truck, which can't start right now. It hasn't started for the past 3 days. I've been trying to get it started. It's the Fords. Like, come on, guys. I love the 7.3 diesel. It's just everything on that Ford was made by Ford, and therefore, you know what I mean? God, every time. Anyways, Princess Diana, thank you for being for doing the $2 donation. I absolutely appreciate that. That's awesome. I see these little crown icons. I don't know what they are, but that's awesome too. Very cool. So here's basically the deal with this situation. You had a government employee, and the government employee went outside of her state to apply for benefits that she wasn't supposed to get. She also applied for benefits claiming that her corporation was bigger and doing more business than it actually was. And what kind of blows my mind about this is that in order for you to pull this off, you have to create fraudulent accounting documents. And then at the very end of those accounting documents, you have to match them to other things you have to submit. So they all have to talk to each other and they all have to communicate with each other and make sense. Now, for me, that seems like magic or way too much work to basically fraudulently get money from the government. To me, it would just be easier to run a business if you had that skill of mass mapping and creating fraudulent documents to submit to the government. Now, I get it that some of these documents probably weren't that complex. I get it. But at the same time, like for me, it's just like, if you have the talent and ability to do accounting documents and cook the books, that means you have the talent and ability to properly run a business. I don't get it. Like just try, you know what I mean? Just try to run a real business and you'll be surprised. You know what I mean? I don't tell people to go into disability law. That is probably the lowest paying law that's out there at this point. I don't know of any other type of law that's lower in the payment zone. But, like at the same time, like if you were running a business with a smoke shop or this place or that place or whatever, it could be anything and everything, right? I don't understand. Like, doesn't this employee, a federal employee, not like a little county employee where they're like, oh no, hey, shit, shut up. And hey, oh, no. This is a federal employee trained by the Social Security Administration to handle the overview, the oversight of benefits for tons and tons of people. This person could have had the capacity to look up your claims, to look up your benefits, to pull your private information. That's what's so amazing to me is that if they had the ability to make all these fake fraudulent documents and submit them, why not just make a real business? Just do it. You could do it. You have the capacity. I don't understand it. To me, and here's the thing, like if you have the capacity to handle payroll, handle, marketing, make products, handle services, do some advertising, if you have the ability to do these things, right? And I get, she didn't do all those things because she wasn't making lots of money. But if you have the ability to do the accounting, you wouldn't believe how many people shriek in fear away from having to do accounting. I hate having to do accounting. It's a miserable process and it takes forever. And you have to click each category and where it's going. And they all have to commute. They have to talk to each other. And then the accounts have to get together and go on a date and actually match up. It's miserable. They never want to go on a second date. It's miserable. And, it's just one of those things like when somebody said, like, well, somebody will be like, my taxes were perfect. I've never seen somebody who actually does taxes or had to do accounting. I have never seen anybody make the statement that the taxes were perfect. There's no way. There's too many categories, too many like side things where you could get this or you could get that, or if you apply here, you're just never going to know about. You go with what the program does. You read the options and you pick what you think is going to be the best one. And that's it. And then you hand it off to an accountant and they look at it and they go, "Hey, screwed up here, 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 here." And then they have to fix it. That's how it works, I'm amazed. I'm amazed. She got more money. Right? With those types of programs than I got during COVID. It blows my mind. It just blows my, I don't know. And then here's the best part. Okay. She was a Social Security employee during all of this. So she had to have an exit plan because she should have known, she could have known, she would have known that you can't do this stuff and then still stick around with the Social Security Administration. Like either there was a massive ego situation where she thought she could get away, or it was a plan where she was like, I'm only doing this and then I'm getting out. She was Ocean's 11 getting out of the game, So I don't know. I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense. If you can cook books, you can run a business. You can do it because cooking books is like harder than running most businesses. Most businesses, you have forms that somebody has to fill out, or you have to get them a product by a certain time. You have to schedule deliveries. You have to make sure the widgets are being manufactured. I don't get it. If you can cook books, you can do most businesses. So I don't know. I feel like if she could cook books, she could have gone and, worked with small businesses and done this and done. She could have gone an accountant degree. She could have been a C. It's mind blowing to me. It always blows my mind when they get caught and, you look at the situation. It's like, what do you do with them now? Like with Tiffany, like, what do you do? Well, I mean, you would probably get her proper education, you get her certifications, and then, you release her into the wild to do what she apparently is gifted to do. And then you watch her, and have a team of people check in on her work and see what she's doing and make sure she's staying the line. What else do you do with them? You can punish them. You can put them in jail forever, right? $50,000, they're not going to be in jail forever. She's not going to be there 20. It won't be 20 years. But what do you do with them? She obviously has a talent. She obviously is willing to cook the books, So, I mean, look, if you can get her on the straight and narrow, and that's the thing too. I mean, are you guys let me know, because I'm curious about your perspective on this. When it comes to people committing a crime, like a financial crime, okay, when it comes to people committing a financial crime, do you feel they can ever be trusted again with money? Like, do you feel they ever deserve your attention? There would be your, particular professional working on something for you. Do you feel that they should ever be given the shot again? I'm seeing no. I'm seeing a sandwich. Oh, ham sandwich. Very nice pictures. I'm seeing no. I'm seeing no. I'm seeing another no. I'm seeing a hello no. You can't trust them. One step for money. Heck no. Hell no. 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 Well, let me ask you this. What if they had to do the work, right? What if they got educated in prison? They had to do the work, and then they always, for the rest of their life, had to be overseen, or their materials that were submitted had to be overseen by an accountant that was specifically trained to review this stuff. Like, would that be acceptable? Like, if they had an overlord, overseeing them and being like, hey, could you do this? Now I'm seeing no ways. I'm seeing a yes. We got one yes. I'm seeing a lot of no's, though. I'm seeing almost no's. I'm seeing quadruple no's. I'm seeing a maybe from Mr. IFS. Howdy, IFS. I'm seeing some maybes. I'm seeing a smiley face. I'm seeing lots of no's. Yes, have a sign-off person. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think a little lady said have basically an individual, if they're willing to work with her, sign off on her. I mean, look, have you guys thought about that? We got a lot of people who have talents for things. They used them to commit crimes. Now, look, to be fair, we have hackers out there in America that we then turn into government employees to do the stuff we want them to do. Nobody says bleep about them. Nobody says anything because, let's be honest, how many hyper intelligent, computer whizzes are there, right? Hey, nobody says, oh, we can't have this guy, or big balls, or this guy, that guy. No. The government's calling them up being like, hey, you're going to be working for us now. You're going to be showing up at 9 a.m. at this location. The address right here, you're going to be there. And you know what's amazing about that is that they end up showing up usually. So I don't know. I think to be fair, like, what do you do with Tiffany? I would get her educated. I would get her working towards a degree. Like, honestly, like, consider my perspective here. I work with all kinds of people. I work with people who have an IQ that is so low that they can't, do basic cognitive functional, anything, right? And then I work with people who have IQs that are 160, 170, 180. I mean, the brightest woman I ever worked with was a horrible, horrible drunk, got her benefits, and it was a massive check. I mean, it might have been the biggest check I've ever seen a claimant actually. It was a massive check. Then 3 weeks after getting her benefits, she walks into the road drunk, and you know what happened. But I will say this to you, when you get into that, like, we're talking 150s, 160s, 170s, 180s, when you get into that territory, math is instant for them. You can give them all kinds of mathematical problems. They can have had a few too many sips, and boy, math is instant for them. So I guess my point to you is, like, what do we do with them? Like, what do we do with different people at different levels? And I guess this is what I would say. I think this is important. A lot of people don't realize, but really, really bright people, their emotions beat them up. And the reason why is because their brain's doing a lot more, thought patterns, logical extensions, analysis, completing different runs, looking around the corner a little to see what's going on. Their brain is working more. So they tend to sometimes get off track pretty easily. Why don't we cater to these ultra smart that basically get off track? Do we have programs in prison for them? Nah, we have more like collegey programs and stuff like that. But, like, why don't we? I don't know, the restitution, the reformation, right? Why don't we cater to these brilliant? Here? All right, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you one more question. This is an important question. Okay, I'm going to ask you this. Okay. Would you support, how we have welfare for people who claim that they can't work? Although, obviously to some degree, there's been generational abuse of welfare. We really need to rely on Social Security to take the role of welfare, and not be what welfare was. We have, so there's people on welfare, right? We cater to those individuals. Okay. So that's what we do. Okay, cool. So you got that. We cater to people on welfare. And you can describe recipients of welfare in any which way you want, but the bottom line is they're unable to fend for themselves, and therefore they're given some sort of benefit. Could be a check, could be this, could be housing, whatever. Would you be offended, or would you be pleased if we gave super intelligent people their own welfare? Think about it. Like, I mean, we set them up so that they had, like, an apartment or some people that would come in and clean for them, maybe cook for them, maybe help them with laundry, basic utilities. Would you be offended that if we had super bright people that we gave them a welfare? Because remember, in America, in order for us to get an advantage, we need super bright people to figure stuff out, create products, figure out the future of this, know how to deal with some problem, etc. Now, obviously, super bright people, their value is going to go way down because AI is going to replace their capacity. But, at the end of the day, would you be okay? Well, no, see, you're saying billionaire welfare. I'm not saying the rich. I'm saying the ones that, ended up a little bit on the wrong side of the tracks. They made some poor choices, but their IQ is up there. Would you be okay with giving some form of welfare to the super bright people who didn't have lots of money to see what we could get out of them? We got a super bright person. We're going to give them a little welfare, squeeze them for ideas, and see what we can get out of them. Gates, Hawking, no. So I mean, you gotta understand, Gates is an ultra rich person. These are people. These are the very bright individuals, high intellectual quotients who actually made a lot of money. I'm talking about the billionaires that could be. I'm talking about the people who just need a little bit of a push to create the future, marketplace thing, whatever, for America. I guess from my standpoint, what I'm really getting at in this particular situation, in my opinion, is, to be fair, setting people up for success that have the capacity to create future products that Americans need. Brett Monday said, if they work for Trump. All right, you know what I mean? And then Spicy Question said, prison with a tennis court and swimming pool. So, all right, you know what I mean? Look, some of you are saying no, but you're using different language for it. You know what I mean? Very interesting. All right, so now you've learned about this Social Security recipient who basically created fraud. Now you're aware. Now you understand it. Now you're rocking and rolling. With that said, I'm going to go to bed a little bit early tonight, not do more videos because I have to wake up and go to the homeless shelter and work with the homeless. Please remember, I don't do Medicare. So if you do have Medicare questions, I partnered with Ask Chapter or chapter.org. Give them a call and ask them about your Medicare, anything, details, programs, etc. Let them go ahead and look at what you got and see if you can get a tune-up and save some money with them. Okay. Bottom line is, here it is again, 339-226-6287. Now, with that said, please remember to like. Some of you don't like. You're not a big fan of the like button. Please remember to like and subscribe. I'll catch you all a little bit later. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. We will rock and roll from there. And please remember, Mondays and Thursdays I go live. And then also below, there's a contract for a full 1-hour consultation. If you got a unique situation, you want me to figure something out, go ahead and do one of those. Contract below. I'll catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful night, and we'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.